Hi, I'm Teresa Chang.
Hi, I'm Felicia Grant Cummings.
Hi, I'm Kim Johnson with Moms Navigating Autism.
Tonight on the show, we have Chris Worley. She, to me, is an amazing woman who has done a lot. She started the Askate Foundation, where she now goes around the world teaching kids with autism how to skateboard. They had a movie called Heart Child, where a cameraman followed them around for a year and recorded everything she went through with her autism child, which was kind of cool. And she has been through so many different therapies, living in one state and driving to another state to get her child to some sort of therapy in one place or another. I mean, I aspire to be like her because there's nothing that can stop her. It's like, you have this child and you're going to do the most that you can to get this child to succeed. And she is one person that I know that has done that. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
I am excited. I want everybody to know all about you.
So my son, he'll be 20 this fall. And when he was 9 months old was the first time I noticed a significant regression of something. I didn't really know what, but he woke up from being asleep that night and his muscle tone in his mouth was just kind of not working. His mouth was sagging and his tongue was kind of limp out of his mouth. And I was like, what is going on? It was so weird. He was babbling. He was already walking at 9 months old. He could walk like from one piece of furniture to the next. And then by 10 months, he was running. He was always very physically strong. He could say some words, but I mean, he was like 9 months. So he only had a handful. So he woke up, his muscle tone, he was just kind of mouth open a little, tongue drooping and irritable. And I didn't really know what was going on. And so over time, over the next few months, he had lots of tests and to see what was going on because his physical strength was just different. He was very clumsy when he walked now. He wasn't as energetic. He would tire really easily. He wouldn't sleep well. He wasn't a great sleeper to begin with, but it was worse. Let's see. By 15 months old, he had I guess it's early intervention that they put you in when they just start sending OT, speech therapists and all that to your house. And he just stopped developing. Like most of these kids have like a developmental roadblock. By 22 months old, he had 3 diagnoses of autism spectrum disorder. So back in, 2002 to 4, it was like the height of autism message boards back then. So I was always on them learning and I'm like, what is happening? And I read a lot about school systems and I was really interested in what life was going to be like with him when he entered school, because I had a really tough time in school, but no diagnosis until I was 16, which was severe ADHD and all these other things. So I had read a lot of parents were saying that, hey, seek more than one diagnosis from one or, from more than one entity, because by the time your child gets high school age or, the teenage years, your child may be better than they were when they were 2 years old, more, they may develop more skills, language, all this, and they'll try to just drop the diagnosis. The schools will. I was like, okay. So I did. I sought out multiple specialists and psychiatrists. So he has 3 official diagnoses by 22 months old of autism spectrum disorder. So no one could challenge me at that point. I was very smart at making sure I covered my bases, that he would be able to get services. So by the time he was 2 and some months, and his brother was about 1, and I had congestive heart failure, and I had open heart surgery, which was super hard because I was having to take him to school and deal with meltdowns, and he was very aggressive at the time. I had to protect my sternum. There was a lot going on, and it was just a really hard time for him. There was nothing that was really helping him be settled in his skin. He always felt like he was crawling out of his skin, and he still couldn't talk, and it was a lot of pointing and mumbling. And so I started taking him to hyperbaric therapy. He's done hundreds of hours of hyperbaric. He also had seizures. So that was something that actually helped. Hyperbaric helped his seizures. The gas under pressure enforces Henry's law. So you're going like 36 feet under sea level or something like that, and you're having oxygen absorb into your blood, which causes new capillary growth in the brain. With me just having open heart surgery, I was very sensitive medically, and I actually was healing very, very fast compared to what most patients would, and it is because of the hyperbaric chamber. Sasha had a great childhood. He's been a good kid. When he was 5, we were doing hyperbaric here in Birmingham. They don't have a center anymore, but it was awesome when they did. They had a mono chamber. It was all see-through, and I didn't have to go in with him. And so in between dives, I would go to this old park down the road, and they had a skateboard park at the time, and he would just fixate on the skateboarders. And so I bought him a skateboard. And during our breaks, before we had to go back to our second session of the day, I would take him to the park, and I would just hold his hand while he stood on a skateboard. And over those weeks, I was like, what is happening in this child? Like, he would smile, his eyes were vibrant. He had a few words, but it wasn't like a full conversation. But when we were on skateboards, it would be more. So I bought him a skateboard, and we would skate in between hyperbaric sessions, and he was just really engaged. And I did not understand at the time what was happening in his brain that was making all of these positive changes happen in his focus, his behavior, in language, and just in general engaging. But it turns out he's having this amazing experience in his brain that is focused on vestibular and proprioceptive growth and sensory changes happening. And it's similar to occupational therapy when kids are on a ball or kids are on a horse or any kind of like body in motion activity. It actually benefits the brain. So I didn't know all of that. I was just seeing it, and not being book smart, I didn't even know how to begin looking, but I knew that something special was happening. So my boys were 3 and 5 around that time, and I bought my other son a skateboard so they could just kind of skate at home and play around with it. And it turned out to be one of the best anger managements for my son that I could have ever had, because when he was upset, I would just put him on his stomach and push him back and forth down the hallway or whatever I needed to do. Skateboarding was usually a part of it in his early life. And wow.
And he's good at skateboarding. I used to watch him. He was tiny. Like I said, when I first met you, he was small, and I used to watch him on that skateboard. He's good.
He is, but it didn't start out that way. He was very clumsy. I mean, he could walk into a wall looking where he's supposed to be going and walk sideways. So he was very uncoordinated, and most of his skateboard training came from putting him on a skateboard when he was upset and helping him like recalibrate his brain and body by pushing him on it or helping him stand on it or balance. Sometimes I would take the wheels off and he would just have like the skateboard on the carpet and playing on it. I mean, it became an obsession for him for a very long time. But so I had friends that we would out of state that we would go and visit, and most of them were connected to skateboarding somehow, and we would go visit. So we would have these events in Knoxville, Tennessee, and they were basically organized through message boards. I would just say, hey, we are going to be in Knoxville. This is an autism message group. If anybody would like to come and try out skateboarding, we'll have some people there. And people started coming. Around 2008 is when Askate was originally starting to form. It became an official organization around 2010. We used to do this surf therapy called Surfers Healing. And some of the friends in North Carolina connected us to Chris Narotko because we were starting. So ESPN wanted to do an interview on it thanks to Chris Narotko. So that's how it all kind of started as far as coming to New York. We ended up just putting a jar on the table and raising money and, pass the bucket type, raising money and saving money, and instead of going on family vacations, we would go on a family skate trip. And during that trip, we would organize a get together with autistic, families of kids with autism.
Yeah.
That's how it started there.
Then you started to get sponsors and
So gosh, Vans was our first big sponsor, and they have been amazing for us and to us. So I think like 2013 is when, like probably 2010 is when I first started having meetings with them and then having events with them, or inviting them to events and having events at their parks, just showing them what this program can do and what it is. And by 2013 they were helping sponsor us monetarily, and it's been amazing.
Yeah,
great ride.
In fact, I have a picture of my son with the riders and everything. It was awesome.
Yeah,
I remember that he loved that.
I feel like I tried a little bit of everything. I know that there were a lot of families and parents that were like, hey, this doesn't work, and then they would talk bad about a therapy, and then it would turn other people off. And I understand, and I think I've always understood that personally things that work for me have always been a little bit unconventional. Like even with anxiety or whatever I may be going through, stretching and breathing actually helps. And, a lot of people are really quick to go to medications, and I've taken medications too, but I still do them all. So when he was little, I really just wanted to try everything that made sense. And if his body was medically not doing something that it should, like, oh man, there was a time when his stool was just black water. Everything he ate, he digested it as black water, and it would just run. I mean, it would go through his clothes. We'd be out shopping, and it was awful. And it turned out he had one of the worst Candida tropicalis infections that his pediatrician had ever seen. So he went through the detox with these medical grade probiotics called, I don't know, but they were intense, and he was pooping these things that looked like vitamin E gel caps. And it was yeast balls. So when you Google Candida tropicalis, you can see that there's like, they can grow into clusters like this throughout your intestines. And he had like 11 days worth of detox from that.
Wow.
So at that point, I realized, okay, well, maybe these diets really do work, because, okay, we cut out dairy, we cut out wheat. He has these other issues, and he may not be changing with his autism, but his body sure is changing. And when his body is healthy, his brain is more healthy. So I think it just made sense to go through the stages of detoxing and then hoping and expecting some kind of neurological change, not just start this and let's see if my kid says new words. It was never like that. So
do they call it leaky gut syndrome or something like that?
they say it's a theory, but it was not a theory when I was wiping it off of Wellness Pharmacy's floor. So
Son did the probiotic, the yeast elimination with special pills. He did that when he was much younger, and we did gluten-free and dairy-free for like a year. It was hard to stick to those. It's like,
yeah,
really,
we had a good 10 years with that. We
it
were
only lasted a year.
egg-free, soy-free. We were all the frees. It actually turned me off to cooking. By the time his IgE and IgG allergy tests both showed no more allergies to these things, and we started introducing food again, I was so over cooking. I just never wanted to cook again. So I had to kind of find that new love of cooking in their older teenage years. It kind of came at a perfect time because they both got really busy with school and activities. And, you know, when you're going from practice to practice and this to that, there's really no time to cook anyway. So I was like, drive through again, guys. So he got to catch up on all the junk food he missed out on. He also had hypogammaglobuline anemia. So he was not producing IgE antibodies for his immune system to function. So he had a home health nurse that would come every 28 days and give him an IV of IgE antibodies called immunoglobulins. I think a lot of cancer and just like really sick patients get these infusions because it replaces your immune system, but then it wears off after 28 days and you have to get another one. So I was like, there's no real reason this should be happening. He saw an immunologist at our local children's hospital. So it wasn't like we were seeing a alternative specialist. We were seeing, you know, what most people call a real doctor, but whatever. So I was like, okay, why is this happening? He doesn't have any kind of like serious disease that is causing his immune system to not function properly. So I got on some more message boards and talked to some parents about their experiences, people who were doing IVIG, and there were a lot of common symptoms like the allergies, the food allergies, the colicky type things, the GI stuff, seizures, all of it was just something that our kids had in common. And we all together found this doctor in Great Plains that was basically bringing over live sequenced amino acid cell injections here from Oxford University. So these injections, like SAMe, that supplement, SAM and a small e, I think is how it's spelled.
Yeah.
This would be like that, except for this would be that the cell was actually alive. So if you shook the shot, it would kill the cell. I told our immunologist, I was like, hey, we're going to take a break from this IVIG. I'll be back in 9 months and let's see if he still needs it. And I flew to Great Plains with my grandmother and my 2 boys and went and met with this doctor and bought these shots. He wasn't sick anymore after a couple of months. And I think it was a total of 9 every 3 weeks. So I don't even know what the timeline was. It was a few months. We went back to the immunologist and he checked his IgG and IgE levels, and Sasha was making IgE antibodies again. And so we never had to have another infusion. Coming from a parent who is really young, does not have a college education, and really struggled in high school, somehow just the common sense of the science and his symptoms and what he was going through, just it was a no-brainer to me. Like, there was no way that I could just not do these things, because if it wasn't common sense, I wouldn't have done it, but it was. So
But that, and you do everything and anything to help your child.
yeah, to a fault most times. So, but
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I think a lot of parents are like that. They do everything, and anything. Like, same with me.
Yeah, I know a lot of times I used to hear a lot of parents like apologize for their kids crying in public or at an event or throwing a tantrum. And I'm just thinking, there were times when he was freaking out and throwing himself on the ground. And I mean, we'd just get on the ground with him and he'd look at us like, why are you doing this? What is happening? And then we'd laugh about it together. So, I mean, sometimes instead of like the stress end of it, we just have to make a joke of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know a lot of parents that, their children get that way. And I always say, you need to watch Heart Child. You really need to watch Heart Child, because you're not the only one that's going through this. It's part of their disability, Yeah,
I know in Heart Child had this one tantrum about a receipt being torn in half. And he starts like crying and beating on a glass window. And I'm like, oh no. And so, but he's come a long way. So Askate is an organization that helps kids on the spectrum and with other challenges like ADHD, Down syndrome, really just whoever wants to come and benefit from it. And we use skateboarding as a social and occupational therapy. We really focus on skateboarding as far as the event goes, but we have transition stations where there's usually different types of arts available to go from music, dancing, painting, drawing, crafts, whatever, just to keep the kids in a circulation instead of focusing on not wanting to get on the board sometimes and then not wanting to get off the board. So it's really fun. We have programs in all over the United States and in multiple other countries. And we also mentor a lot of groups who want to carry over our mission, but in their own programs and integrate it into their own organizations. So we also mentor them and share our platform with them and help guide them through their journey of starting their own programs. A couple of filmmakers, students from NYU asked if they could just follow us around and video and film and make a video project. And we really weren't sure what that was going to become, but I was like, sure. So these guys followed us all the way to Ireland and back. And then they put together, about a year and a half later, they put together a film that ended up in film festivals and has been a pretty successful little documentary for information on autism and families and just being a part of something unconventional that turned out to be really conventional. He has learned so much over these years. I contribute skateboarding a lot to it. And, but also not just that, but also his experience of having to be forced to travel with me has really helped him be able to get out in the world and just
See things, right? Yeah.
but also be able to like experience the world solo, where he doesn't have to have me always with him. Like I've been with him for many years, traveling to California by plane or driving across country, driving to New York, driving to Oregon, wherever we're going. And the whole journey of that has been challenging because, all his sensory issues, his quirks, his OCDs, the things that he fixates on, the needing to go through all these car washes. He went through like a 10-year car wash phase, which was like really hard. But I had the
Remember that.
Yeah, so in the film you'll see we went to his first car wash convention. I realized that when he gets on these fixations, if I can, sometimes he will pass that fixation and move on to something else if he reaches his peak. The car wash phase was fun. It was hard, but it was fun. We went to a few car wash conventions. We went to one in Las Vegas, and then a few years later, we went to one in Nashville. And I think after the one in Nashville, he was in that teenage phase where he was starting to notice how different he was and how car washes was not really something that most kids were interested in. And so he kind of shied away from it. But if you ask him about it, he'll say, yeah, I still love car washes, but I just don't want to talk about it in front of people. I'm like, okay, whatever. So he hasn't quite let the love of it go, but he's not obsessed with it like he was. I think that's the major word.
No, I think mine still has a lot of things that he was obsessed with, that he has. But like I know what you're saying, like they don't want everyone to know about it.
Him working has been really beneficial. He has made a friend at work, and sometimes he picks this guy up on the way to work. They're about the same age. And
wait, he's working?
He stocks shelves at a grocery store, like a local grocery store. Yeah, he makes like, he's working 4 days a week, and he also volunteers at a reptile store, so his weekends are tied up with that. And he takes these reptiles and to children's birthday parties.
I'm glad to have you on the show.
Thanks.
Yeah,
it was great to meet you. Nice to meet you, Kim.
Nice to meet you too.
We want to thank Chris Worley from Askate for joining us tonight.
We want to thank Autism for giving us this platform.
And we want to remind everybody that we are mothers. We're not professionals. We're sharing our experiences so that we can help you with your autism child.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. Follow, like, and subscribe.